this is Christina Barr. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr. And yesterday, bombshell news broke about 3 o'clock. I got out of church and my youngest sister was like, "Did you hear?" I was like, "What?" And she's like, "DeSantis dropped out." And I was just full Lord. Now, the result in Iowa definitely wasn't what he wanted. It was very much kind of, I suppose it was a last stand. After it was over, they pretended like it wasn't a last stand. But some of his Massey and I think Chip Roy were talking about taking it to convention, and there are pros and there are cons to trying to make it that far, and reasons why he could have and perhaps should have tried, but he probably just didn't see the path to victory. Obviously, donors probably didn't see that path to victory, so he pulled out and suspended his campaign. I actually have not watched his video, so it's about like 4 minutes long. So I'm going to watch it actually live with you guys. I mean, people are like, classy response. And he did apparently go ahead and endorse Trump. So I don't know exactly what he said other than people's commentary about it. So we're going to have a little live reaction to his response. And I assume it's classy, but we will find out together, or perhaps you know more than I do and you actually saw it, and you'll just be watching me respond. But anyway, we'll be talking about that. Also, Nikki Haley, there's an interview. It's not a new interview, but when she was had to explain it again the slavery comment, she made some comments about growing up in the South as a brown child, and so people on the right have been coming at her for it. And I think it's possible she's probably exaggerating about her experiences, because I don't think every day she was probably harassed or something, or mocked or made fun of for being a brown child. But it's not outside of the realm of possibility. Kids and they doesn't have to be just kids, but people are mean. People are mean. Kids can be mean. Kids, if people can think that if you don't speak Ebonics that you're trying to be white, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility that someone would tease her for being brown. So I just want to talk about some of that commentary surrounding that, and actually look at, the interview, or at least a snippet of the interview as well. And we'll be talking about Trump, his chance of 2024, who's going to be the VP, which is all speculation right now. Lots of names floating around. No, I do not think it should be Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis said that he would stay in, he wouldn't accept it and would be in Florida being a governor. And I think that's the best bet for him. But I see people who are all on the DeSantis train, like Bill Mitchell, all on the DeSantis train. Trump, DeSantis drops out, he's ticked off, and then he bounces back and he's like, well, we could have a unity ticket of Trump and DeSantis. If you like DeSantis, I think that's a terrible idea, and I'll explain why. We'll talk about that. But before we jump into everything, I hope you guys had a nice weekend, first and foremost. But you guys can go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles and videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com, because it does cost to stream and run my website, all that good stuff. So you guys can do that. I absolutely appreciate it. You guys can also check out different merch that we have available at blacktnews.com. Since I think it's anniversary, like Roe v. Wade. We have, Life Wins and Roe and Casey aborted t-shirts, and pro-choice men are sus. And we got some other stuff. You guys can check out black tea mugs and other stuff as well. I'm not wearing one of my shirts today. I'm wearing an Abolitionist Rising shirt. You were never just a clump of cells. And the back of it's really cool. But I'm not about to turn around for you guys. So it's a neat shirt. And so when I was about to come on, I'm like, oh, let me wear this. Because that's all the rage today for different conversations that we're having, because the Democrats are still lamenting the overturning of Roe v. Wade. Kamala Harris had tweeted out, let me just read her tweet really quick. She said, "My message is clear. The government should not tell women what to do with their bodies. Their own bodies," is what she said. Of course, really silly thing that people say all the time. It's not, well, the government does tell people what to do all the time with their bodies. Pandemic, for one. They tax your labor, the money that's earned with your labor that's generated with your body, is it not? They tell you not to kill. Those are things that you do with your body, right? You'd have to implement it. Abortion isn't just something that you bring upon by sheer willpower. You actually have to take an action to kill another person. But, and I guess there's an argument for, is it a person? But we'll just say living human. So it's not your body, etc. So beyond it being a dumb thing that people say repeatedly, I had retweeted it and said, and by woman, she means dudes with dicks. Sorry for the vulgarity. And by should not tell, she means stop them from going into our locker rooms. Like, you can't be all like, women this, women that, and you don't even have the guts to say what a woman is. But on the flip side, if someone claims that they're a woman, you guys want to uplift them over actual women. So it's crazy that the only time they really want to concentrate on women's rights is when it's this made up right to go kill your offspring. It's not the right to have our own private spaces, our own sports teams. That's not what they care about. That's not what they care about. So just a silly party. Just a silly party. It's too bad we don't have I don't know. Seems like we don't have a lot of competence to match their silliness going on right now. So Republicans just can't get it together on a lot of fronts, especially like legislatively with budgets and all that stuff. So it does make me sad at this point. Well, Trump's kind of flip with the abortion stuff, and the he did, whether you like him or not, he did like throw pro-lifers under the bus pretty hard after like the midterms and other stuff like that. And so attacking like the 6-week bills, and how he said he wants to make some kind of deal and that'll be the end of it. And he won't go higher than 15 weeks, but it kind of seems like the deal he wants to make is like, in the past he said this thing's around 20 weeks. So if he wants to make some kind of deal around like 20 weeks, he basically be for like have 99% of abortions occurring. So if that's your position, I don't really think you're pro-life. I think that's pretty pro-choice. If you are like fighting for the position or thinking about allowing the position that 99% of abortions should be able to occur. So if it's not 99, he's somewhere in the ballpark of close to that number. So I mean, Haley's still in the race, but nobody likes Haley. And the crossover support she's getting for the Democrats, they're going to vote for Biden anyway. She might attract some independents and so on, but she's never going to make it past the primary unless they did some shady stuff at convention. And they're not going to probably pull off shady stuff from convention, because Ronna, who is the RNC chair, is Trump's gal. You know, I mentioned that on Facebook, and someone was like, Ronna Romney. Like, they couldn't believe, like, they thought it was so silly that they were like aligned. I'm like, I know her. She was my boss. Why do you think she doesn't go by Romney anymore? She just goes by McDaniel. When she was the chairman of the Michigan Republican Party, she capitalized off of being a Romney. And now it's like, please don't remember that and call me Ronna McDaniel. So when she goes back to try to run for governor, as I hear in the atmosphere, um, maybe she'll throw that Romney back on, hoping that it will appeal to moderates or folks from Michigan. Um, but he picked her to be the RNC chair, so I don't understand why that was such a shock to some people. But if you don't know, you don't know. But if you don't know, you don't have to. I don't know, be such a jerk. Be so certain of the thing that you're wrong about. Yeah. So anyway, I don't think, I'm not saying it's impossible for some kind of floor fight to happen, but if it did happen, it wouldn't be because I think Rana would be so gung ho to throw Trump out and get Haley in or something like that. We'd have to have some pretty dire circumstances, probably with his legal issues, to um get to that point. But every time he's indicted or something, Trump's numbers go up. So if his numbers keep going up, I don't know what a conviction is going to do. It will probably make him kind of dead in the water for a general, but it might make him, I don't know at this point it would be possible to have him be replaced. And again, he hasn't gotten the nomination yet. There's still one person in the race. Um, but it seems like it's a pretty foregone conclusion, because even with DeSantis dropping out, his like 4% that he probably would have got in New Hampshire, maybe he could have got it a little higher. That number isn't probably going to go to Haley. It's probably going to go to Trump. So they, whatever gap that she was closing in New Hampshire is probably gone now. And I don't think she's going to want to lose South Carolina. So she's probably gonna, not be in it too much longer. But the rumors are that she's the one that he was considering for VP, but he's probably not 100% decided. But Nikki is don't let people pretend like she's not a serious contender for that spot. But anyway, before I get to the DeSantis dropping out video, I want to go ahead and talk about the Nikki Haley situation, because, well, we're going to talk about this meme and then we're going to go look at the videos and different responses to this. So she talked about how growing up she was, ridiculed for being a brown child. So this is from the Right to Bear memes. And so they, put Jesse Smollett's face over Nikki Haley and saying, and then they yelled, "This is MAGA country," to just undermine her and make it seem like she's not being honest about that. So people are mocking her. And I don't think that this is a great attack on her. I'm not too fond of Nikki Haley. I think it's pretty evident that she's lied a lot. And I think I talked about last week, went on a rant about how if you're going to keep continuously lying about blatantly obvious things, at some point in time, it's not just you in desperation, it's you having a lack of respect for the voters. And so I just can't get over that. So multiple things she's just been dishonest about. And then there's some policy things I don't like, but the lies are really crazy to me. But it's probably true that she faced some different awkward, maybe even I don't know if I want to say harassment's kind of strong. She's probably teased, if not bullied, for being brown at times. Well, I don't understand why that's so unbelievable. And so I think it was Libs of TikTok made fun of her too. Yeah, I got the post right here. And so Libs of TikTok, Nikki Haley, when she was supposedly teased for being brown, what do you notice? And she is very light skinned, sure. But people know that she's brown. And so my friend, this is Savvy, said election years bring out some of the worst people. I hate the race card as much as I hate the race card as much as I think it's supposed to anyone, and I wouldn't call myself a Nikki fan. I don't have much of an opinion on her at all, but this is gross. We need to stop. She was an Indian kid living in post Jim Crow South Carolina. Of course she was teased. I'd be shocked if she wasn't. And Zav is not woke at all. She's not woke at all. Um so I agree with her. I don't really like these attacks so much on her. Someone said when a candidate is using the race card to further their acceptance as a qualification, they no longer probably no longer identify as an American. They identify as what you fall for hook, line, and sinker. And that's a crazy post. And Sav replied to them, that doesn't give people an excuse to do racist bleep. Nikki Haley is Indian. She is brown. Whether she's light brown, dark brown, medium brown, she is brown. Posting an old discolored, high contrast photo of her and calling her white is wrong. I don't care who she is or what she said. It's wrong. Don't make excuses for this. Hate her all you want, but don't attack her skin color or ethnicity. That's what Democrats do. We're supposed to be better than that. And I agree, and it obviously doesn't make our side look better at all. Like, not in the least bit. And Nikki Haley, but people have been like using that line of attack with her, like going by Nikki, which Nikki is her middle name. It is actually her middle name, but there are comments even like from Vivek's team, which they asked on the debate stage, that lean toward like him not so many words, saying that she was kind of whitewashing her Indian heritage from her name change to her religion and stuff. But no one really talked about it much. I mean, I touched on a little bit, but that was in the segment when he like went on a rant and talked about how she was corrupt and held up the sign that said Nikki Haley is corrupt. So the beginning part of that question and him brushing past it, I think people mostly overlooked. But Democrats have been using that line of attack for a while, and Vivek jumped on that too, and other people are jumping on it as well. I'm going to go ahead and play this snippet. And again, this was like a conversation that spawned off of like the questions about slavery, when she wouldn't say that the Civil War, well, they asked her what like caused it, and she like had an answer that didn't involve slavery, and so she was just dragged for that. So she was of course asked about that, which spawned this conversation about race and her struggles growing up.
We were the only Indian family in our small southern town. I was teased every day for being brown. So anyone that wants to question it can go back and look at what I've said on how hard it was to grow up in the deep South as a brown girl. Anybody can look at my record and see when Walter Scott was shot down by a dirty cop, how I made sure that the Walter Scott family didn't suffer because we put the first body camera bill in the country in place. Anybody can look at the fact that when we had 9 amazing souls die in Mother Emanuel Church, I did something that no Republican or Democrat ever wanted to touch, which was call for the Confederate flag to come down, because it would take 2/3 of the House and Senate and was an impossible feat. I don't know what you're implying with that, but what I will tell you is saying that I had Black friends is a source of pride. Saying that I had white friends is a source of pride. If you want to know what it was like growing up, I was disqualified from a beauty pageant because I wasn't white or Black, because they didn't know where to put me. So look, I know the hardships, the pain that come with racism. It's the reason that I fight bullies every day when it comes to racism, anti-Semitism, or hate, and I always will. If I didn't mention slavery on that day, it's because that's an automatic. There's always been, the Civil War's always been known about slavery.
So I ragged on her slavery answer. One day she was explaining it. She made a comment about, I have Black friends or whatever, which is a thing that they say that you always aren't supposed to say. It's probably good that you have Black friends, though. You're not allowed to say it. But it didn't, it wasn't a great moment. And so that was her trying to clean it up some more. And if you really don't think, again, every day could be an exaggeration, sure. But as Savvy said, I would be surprised if she wasn't teased or picked on sometimes, at least, for um being Indian. I just, even if she wasn't in the South, but she was in the South. um People, kids can be cruel. Like I had retweeted, I said, kid, I don't understand why people think this is so crazy, because kids can joke and say mean stuff all the time, and someone's like, well, it's not out of malice though. And I didn't get a chance to respond to them, but no, kids can have malice. Kids can be really cruel. But I mean, when I was a kid, people said that I was trying to be white, and they teased me for, I don't know, not speaking Ebonics, and I don't know what else, but they just was like, "Oh, you're trying to be white. You think you're better than everyone else, etc." Blah blah blah. And I'm just, trying to just live my life, get good grades, and you know, um, be a good Christian girl. Like I didn't speak a lot. I just I had a handful of friends, and I mean like a handful of friends, and it wasn't because I wasn't friendly. I was just um a shy kid, and shy but confident. Like, people didn't break my spirits when they came in and talked trash about me. But I don't know what it was. She said she was the only Indian in her small town. I lived in a very diverse area, but there's different colorism stuff that happens within like different communities. So if you're the total outsider, is it really that hard to believe? A friend of mine, she talked about, I don't know if this happened while I don't know if she lived in Michigan her whole, yeah, she did live in Michigan her whole life, but I don't know if in college she went somewhere and she got hazed, but she was the only white person on like a team, on her athletics team. I don't remember what sport she played, but she said she got hazed pretty bad. So anybody can get it. So people pretending that she wouldn't get teased because she's not brown enough, and that she's really white, and she's just making it up. No, people know people know she still got her last name, don't she? Like, people know. Um, just looking at some of the comments. So, I got my sisters in the chat who are reiterating that, like, people treat you bad if you just wanted to do your homework and get. Sometimes it was so bizarre. Like, there was such kind of dysfunction in the community that if you just weren't kind of part of the dysfunction, you were an outsider. It was really strange, really strange. But yeah, it's believable to me. Now, is she trying to play on the woman card and other stuff? Sure. Identity politics, yeah, she is. It's not as bad as like the Democrats do it, but yeah, she's playing with it a bit. By the way, Vivek did a bit too, like the skinny kid with a funny name. The line from Obama a bit. So but Nikki Haley is my heels have ammunition, all this stuff. Totally playing into that stuff. That's true, but it doesn't mean that what she said about her life isn't valid, and that she wasn't teased for being you know that she was teased for being a brown person. I probably would have just phrased it, I was teased for being an Indian girl, but because I feel like when people throw in those colors, they are trying to get like solidarity with other people who felt that way. But then she threw in the line about she was disqualified. They didn't put her into the pageant because she wasn't black or white. So she's clearly, whatever her reality, though races may be able to be sympathetic to her experience, it is a separate experience from a Black person. So yeah, there's people making fun of her. You guys are kind of out of pocket. You guys are kind of out of pocket. So those are my thoughts about that. Now let's get to Ron and his announcement. Again, I haven't actually watched this video, so we will watch it together. It's about 4.5 minutes long, and we will commentate. If I feel the need to stop and say something, I shall. But this is his announcement yesterday that he was dropping out.
Greetings from Florida. The warmth of being home is a reminder why I've chosen public service, from joining the United States Navy and serving in Iraq to representing the people in the U.S. Congress, and now serving as governor of Florida. And it reminds me why I decided to run for president, to fight for those who've been forgotten in this country. This is America's time for choosing. We can choose to allow a border invasion, or we can choose to stop it. We can choose reckless borrowing and spending, or we can choose to limit government and lower inflation. We can choose political indoctrination, or we can choose classical education. These choices are symptoms of the underlying struggle to ensure that constitutional government can endure and that Western civilization can survive. And we launched this campaign to bring accountability to government, regain sovereignty at our border, and restore sanity to our society. We cannot succeed as a country if we allow our nation to be invaded, our currency to be debased, our cities to crumble, and our kids to be indoctrinated. The DC elites who facilitated this mess do not care about you, and they do not work for you. They work for themselves. They seek to accumulate power at your expense to pursue an agenda that is harmful to the American people. Citizens do not serve politicians. It is the duty of politicians to serve you. Talk is cheap. Actions speak louder than words. Reversing the decline of this nation requires leadership that delivers big results for the people we are elected to serve. I have a record of leading with conviction, championing an agenda marked by bold colors, delivering on my promises, and defeating the people who are responsible for our nation's decline. That is the type of leadership we need for all of America. Now, over the past many months, Casey and I have traveled across the country to deliver a message of hope that decline is a choice and that we can, in fact, succeed again as a nation. Nobody worked harder, and we left it all out on the field. Now, following our second place finish in Iowa, we've prayed and deliberated on the way forward. If there was anything I could do to produce a favorable outcome, more campaign stops, more interviews, I would do it. But I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. Accordingly, I am today suspending my campaign. I'm proud to have delivered on 100% of my promises, and I will not stop now. It's clear to me that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance. They watch his presidency get stymied by relentless resistance, and they see Democrats using lawfare this day to attack him. Well, I've had disagreements with Donald Trump, such as on the coronavirus pandemic and his elevation of Anthony Fauci. Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden. That is clear. I signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and I will honor that pledge. He has my endorsement because we can't go back to the old Republican guard of yesteryear, a repackaged form of warmed over corporatism that Nikki Haley represents. The days of putting Americans last, of kowtowing to large corporations, of caving to woke ideology are over. I thank all of our passionate supporters who have stood by us through it all. That we had people volunteer to come to Iowa in the middle of a blizzard to knock on doors and make phone calls touched us dearly. No candidate had more thrown at him, but no candidate had so many committed volunteers and staff. Finally, I want to thank my wife, Casey, and our kids, Madison, Mason, and Mamie. Casey's gone far above and beyond in her support for our campaign and for our cause. She's not only a great wife and mother, she's a great American who cares deeply about the future of the country that our kids will inherit. Our kids have seen and done a lot on the trail, from playing on the famed Field of Dreams baseball site in Iowa to making their first snowman in New Hampshire. They are one of the reasons we fight so hard for what we believe in. Winston Churchill once remarked that success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. While this campaign has ended, the mission continues. Down here in Florida, we will continue to show the country how to lead. Thank you, and God bless.
So, that was a pretty good video, I guess. At the beginning of it, it did really sound, like a pitch still for himself. And then I think yeah, he probably just couldn't see the path forward because he wasn't going to get any traction in New Hampshire. I don't think there's enough kind of time or ground or whatever to get to South Carolina. The truth of the matter is that DeSantis was more competitive to Trump before the indictments started kicking in. And once the indictment started kicking in, Trump's support went up and everyone else's went down, basically. There's different polling. I'm trying to see. Let me show you guys this chart. So you guys can so March is when there started to be a shift with the indictments and stuff, and Trump started to just keep going up, and DeSantis just continued to tank. At that point in time, like, people are like, oh, DeSantis, he just ran the worst campaign ever. There's things that he did that were mistakes. But him running the worst campaign ever, people are like, they'll write books about how terrible it was. They'll write songs about this, and just really exaggerations. I don't think there was anything that he did that was that terrible to warrant that kind of decline. The truth is that there's a lot of people who feel like, well, that wanted Trump again anyway. They felt like he got cheated or whatever. There's people who were considering someone else, especially if they like Trump, but electability was a question. But Biden hasn't been polling well. So if they're like, oh, well, if Biden's not polling well and Trump is polling like he can beat him, then I could stick with my guy. He deserves another shot, and he's not going to get time after that because he's up there in age. So it's now or never. So they're going with them and feel like DeSantis or whoever could have waited their turn. I don't really like the wait your turn philosophy, but people feel like, and this is a commentary that I've just observed, different interviews, what I've seen with different people, that if they vote for someone else, it would feel like they are okaying or surrendering to the Democrats and the lawfare of what the attacks on Trump are succeeding if they allow themselves to vote for someone else because of the electability issues regarding his legal situation. Now, I guess I can understand that, but the question still remains: what are you going to do with the legal stuff? What are you going to do with the legal stuff? Because if he is convicted, by the time November rolls around, there's a lot of people who are not going to vote for him, especially as things come out regarding the election, things that his staff did or did not tell him regarding his win, and his willpower to just press forward and make the challenges anyway, regardless of the fact that his lawyers did tell him that it was practically impossible to win those things too. Some of this stuff, by the way, his team was already interviewed and admitted during the January 6th committee hearings. There's videos out there with them, like saying stuff like the election, electors, the alternative elector stuff was crazy and so on. So as more of that information comes out, I think there's going to be independents and other people who are like, I don't know about having this guy in office. Like, I don't like Biden, but some of the stuff was really not presidential. The stuff about Florida, him hiding his documents from his lawyers, hiding it around Mar-a-Lago, different places, having someone fly them to New Jersey and all kinds of stuff. People are going to be like, that's weird. Why? And then there's some people who, just think the absolute worst of Trump and assume that he's, I don't know, holding on to nuclear secrets so he can sell them to Putin or something crazy like that. And I don't think that's the case with his documents. I think he just took stuff and he just didn't want to give them back and was dragging his feet with giving them back. And then, of course, some of he didn't want to give back. And then it just kept escalating. You could say, well, Pence had some documents and Biden had documents. Sure. But once this stuff with Trump really started to escalate, they're like, okay, well, let's send this stuff back. I don't think Trump would have been in the trouble that he is in regarding this if he had just complied when they kind of wanted them back. I think with Trump, with these situations, a lot of it is, at least with Florida, it's like the cover up is worse than the crime. But with the DC cases and stuff, I don't know anyone who thinks that they'll be fair to Trump. So if you don't think they'll be fair to Trump, what are the odds of him not being convicted? So, it's going to be tough, guys. It's going to be tough. And there's already polls tightening with Trump and Biden. I think his path to victory is I'm not optimistic about it. I'm just gonna be frank with you. Maybe things will change. Maybe people will be so fed up with the border. I think out of all the consequences between Biden and Trump, the two that from a Biden presidency that like another 4 years that are, I think they're the most concerning about the kind of damage they could do is what could possibly happen with the Supreme Court. And it would be such an unjust thing in the universe if Biden got to, I don't know, replace Clarence Thomas. That'd be so terrible. But the border situation, there's so many people coming into the country. I mean, in like a month, there's enough people to basically replace cities. I'm talking about major cities, based almost like at least half the. In December, it was like 300,000 people and stuff coming in. Just so many people coming in across the border, and I think maybe it'll be tamed and they'll act a little right during election year. But Biden's not going to deport all these people. Some of them don't even have hearings until probably after this man will be out after a second term, or maybe he will be dead by then. I don't know. So it's just going to fundamentally change our country, and there appears to be no stopping it. The Supreme Court, by the way, ruled that the Biden administration could take down like the barbed wire, spiral kind of barbed wire and stuff that they had to try to like protect the border from people coming in, because they said that, well, the federal government's not going to do their job. Texas is going to secure the border. And so it was like a 5-4 ruling, and Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett sided with the libs. So Texas, I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe appeal something else, try something else. I don't know. But we're in a really, really bad situation with the border. Really bad situation. So if Biden tries to clean up some of that for the sake of getting reelected, and shows that he can be a bit more moderate like people hoped he would be, he could alleviate some of the concerns, I guess, of the independents and whatnot. But I just don't see a lot of people changing their minds. I'm not surprised by some people are trashing DeSantis for going ahead and endorsing Trump. He did make a pledge and he always said he was going to support the nominee. You could say, well, Nikki Haley is still in there. True, but he's not going to support Nikki Haley. And she doesn't really have much of a path to victory either. So he just went ahead and, did whatever, which by the way, Trump thanked him and said nice things about him being a good governor and all that stuff. So a lot of the crap that he said on the campaign trail, of course, were lies and nothing matters. I don't appreciate that. Like you can talk about each other's policy differences on the campaign trail, do a battle of ideas, but you don't have to lie and all kinds of different stuff. There's some DeSantis supporters who are like, okay, well, we'll lick our wounds and we'll get back to it. And, we'll support Trump, to beat Biden. I've seen a lot of folks though on Twitter who are just like, no, who are like, we're not supporting this populism stuff that's outrooted like the Republican Party and pushed out conservative values. That the way that not only Trump's influencers have acted, but Trump himself is not appropriate, and he hasn't earned their support. So I don't know how many people are out there with that opinion. I don't know how much can change in a short amount of time. In 2016, there was a lot of people who said that they weren't going to support Trump. And then, of course, the situation with Scalia dying changed a lot of people's minds. And so I was on a tour bus with the different candidates going across the state. And Bill Schuette, who was Attorney General at the time, he ran against Governor Whitmer in 2018, lost pretty badly. But he was our Attorney General at the time. He kept saying, like, we need to vote for Trump, from top to bottom, from Trump to bottom and bottom to Trump or something like that. And he would say Supreme Court, Supreme Court, Supreme Court. And that was basically his talking point. And I remember Brian Calley really didn't want to support him. And he didn't say anything about supporting him on the campaign trail while we were, I think, going on tours and stuff. But I guess he told a story later that his wife was able to convince him to vote for Trump. So there could be different situations that arise that make it really do or die. And voting for for a candidate, even though you don't like them, but the other option is worse. But there are some people who are just like, nope, never again. And even if there aren't people who, let's say there's a small number of people who are like, I'll get over it now, I'll lend my support. There's still going to be plenty of people who don't have the same sort of vigor that they had in 2016 or 2020. And if there's a lack of enthusiasm there, that's a problem. By the way, the Democrats have a lack of enthusiasm as well. Huge lack of enthusiasm, right? But the thing about Democrats is that they have all this cash coming in. They have Zuckerbucks, and they have these organizations that do ballot harvesting. They pay people or will give them food and other stuff to show up to things. And, these some rallies, there's kids will show up, they'll give them like extra credit if they attend this rally and whatnot. So they have different ways of really trying to game the system and make people participate in some kind of way. And the most successful way that they had all these people participate in the last election, well, not the last election, but 2020, was that they had the mail-in ballots. They had the mail-in ballots that they're able to do with COVID and fund with stuff like the CARES Act, which Trump signed. So you could be a low information voter and you could be like low enthusiasm, but when people are on TV like saying all the time, like, you got to vote, you got to vote, you got to vote, and there's like local ads saying people will be able to see if you voted or not, like like creepy kind of I don't know. I certain ads, I'm like, did they just threaten me? And there was such pressure to do it, but there was like um a low need of commitment to actually mail in your ballot or something, and someone could pick it up and put in a drop box location or whatever. So if they're going to be organized that kind of way, which Biden is blowing it out of the water with fundraising, right? He's been crazy fundraising this whole time, and he fundraised after Iowa. He got a bunch of money. So they're ready. They're ready, you know. Even if Biden has to run another basement campaign, which I'm sure he will, or maybe it's a beach campaign, he'll just be sitting on another vacation the whole time. They have mechanisms in place to get that low information, low enthusiasm vote. Now, I think people being upset about Israel and Gaza will peel off some folks, but I don't and so that's going to be what some of their young voters that are not always reliable anyway. So I mean, a lot of young people voted in the midterm elections, but there was just increase with the demographics period. So I don't think the young vote was really as impactful as I don't know, they try to make it seem. So I don't think he'll quite have their support. But we have a independent Kennedy's out there, you know, so I think he's going to pull some people, quite a lot of people, and I think he has a greater appeal toward Republicans or independents than like Democrats. So I think he's going to end up hurting Trump more than he will hurt Biden. So it'll be an interesting time for sure. But I don't know how many people are going to be quick to the unity table. And there's like big people who've been like pro DeSantis, so I'm seeing on social media, they're just kind of like, yeah, we got to come together, we got to support Trump, etc. But there's some people who are like, nope, I'd rather we need a reset, and or they claim in good conscience they can't support Trump, etc. So I think he's gonna have a problem in the general, guys. It depends if there's some crazy stuff that could happen that could change people's minds. There's a lot of people again who are getting on board, you know, and probably just need some time. But I don't know. I mean, people are saying, well, DeSantis went ahead and endorsed Trump, so everybody else who support him just need to go ahead and do it. But I'm seeing people say, well, that was his oath, that wasn't mine. So we'll see. We'll keep watching it. Well, I'm very interested to see how the polls tighten or shift, and if there's just going to be like a surge in the Biden way, especially in these swing states that are so crucial for them to win. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about this VP stuff. I think DeSantis being the VP, which I don't think he's ever been considered really, would be a terrible idea. And I wish people would stop bringing it up. DeSantis has said that he would rather go be the governor of Florida. I do think it would be a waste of time for him to be Trump's VP. And I don't think that it would politically help him, because all you have to do is do something that ticks off Trump. And if you do something that ticks off Trump, you know, people were talking about Mike Pence, you know, running for president. He did a really good job during his first debate in 2016 with Tim Kaine, against Tim Kaine, and Trump had like blew his first one. So I think the media was like talking up Pence a lot to try to like bruise Trump's ego a bit, to annoy him. But Mike Pence did a legitimately good job. He did a good job against Kamala Harris as well. But people apparently didn't care because they were talking about the fly in his hair, and that's all people could talk about. And or they were excusing Kamala Harris for not doing well because because Black women have to restrain themselves so they don't upset too many people. Which there's technically there's some truth to that, but she just messed up. She wasn't good. She wasn't good, and he cleaned her clock. But of course, the fly was like the star who they got into his hair. So people, he was over like the task force for like the COVID stuff with the governors, and Trump utilized him well during the time of him being the vice president. But when Mike Pence decided that he was going to go ahead and certify the election and stuff, that was a big divide with him and Trump, and that was a big divide with Pence and a lot of Trump supporters, and it just blew any sort of higher aspirations that he had for office. Like when he announced for president, I'm like, that's a waste of time. It's a huge waste of time. And he was like, what, the first one to get out? So if DeSantis was his VP and there was some kind of ideological disagreement or something, and Trump decided to roast him, it would be more of a hindrance than a help to DeSantis. Maybe it could help the ticket a bit, but I wouldn't recommend anyone with like really high. If you got something to lose, there's compilation videos, we played them, of like Trump being like, oh, this person is so great, and then when they fall out of the good graces or whatever, they leave the administration, he fires them or whatever, then they're like the dumbest person he's ever known, etc., blah blah blah. So I just don't think there's some people are like, well, he should be at least the AG. For what? He should remain governor, finish out his term as governor. There's no point in him taking the number 2 spot. Nikki Haley, I said I put out my feelers. There's a lot of rumors about her being the VP pick, and according to sources and stuff, she was being considered. I don't know that it was a done deal or anything, or was a done deal in their minds or whatnot. But I said I wouldn't say that she'd be the definite person because he could always change his mind or whatnot. But I don't think I don't know what she's going to decide or not decide. I do think that MAGA would hate it, and they would claim that they are claiming that they would be done with Trump if he picked Haley. I think that Trump thinks that they would all roll over. So I don't think he's going to, at the end of the day, care what other people have to say if he decided to pick Haley. So moderates do like her or whatever. So maybe that could help his ticket a bit. I don't know. Ben Carson isn't going to help his ticket, really. Carrie Lake is running for Senate. She definitely wouldn't help his ticket. I know people like them. Tucker Carlson wouldn't help his ticket. And Nikki Haley would also come with a bunch of money too. From her donors. So I don't know if Trump is going to go for like the best case to win, or if Trump would go for the person who's going to be the best cheerleader for me. So I think his VP pick is going to say a lot about his intentions to win the entire thing. But Kristi Noem is a possibility. But I think the whole Corey Lewandowski affair rumor thing, which I've never met Noam. I've never met Corey. I know a lot of people know a lot of people, and according to the political world, they're like, this is not a secret or well-kept secret. So, and it could just be a lot of rumors, but it doesn't seem like it's just going to be controversial enough. So I don't know if it could be her. I don't know if it could be her. There is a lot of people saying Vivek, that they want Vivek. As a matter of fact, Glenn Beck claimed that Trump asked him who his pick should be, and he actually said Vivek. I'm gonna go ahead and play this clip. Actually, I haven't. This is another one I'm watching kind of for the first time with you guys, but
last week Donald Trump called me and he said, "Any advice on who I should pick for vice president?"
Oh, really?
Who do you think? Not that he's probably calling everyone.
But that's great that you're on that
and
list.
so he said, "Who do you think?" And I said, "I don't know how you're going to feel about it, but this is the day." I think it was the day he trashed Vivek, and I said, "Vivek." And he said, "Why do you say that?" He said, "That's the number one response from everybody I've asked that question." And he said, "Why do you say that?" And I said, "A, he can defend you. He's right in your pocket. And while you're defending this, he's watching your back defending this." I said, also, I think some of his ideas are really, really good. Yeah. He connects with the youth, which now the latest of 18 to 24-year-olds that voted for Biden, they're not voting for Biden, but they won't vote for Donald Trump yet. So you get that lower vote, the people that are excited about, hey, something fresh and different. And then in 2028, when you can no longer run, you continue for another 8 years,
right?
And you get the credit for bringing this new, fresh face in. I said, I just think you become legendary.
And what did he say to that?
Well, we'll see.
So, I had a conversation. Well, I had saw people kind of talk about this on Twitter, and then I got someone contacted me, huge like Trump advocate in the past and stuff. And they said, "Did you hear what Glenn Beck said about Vivek?" I was like, "I heard about it." And she's like, "If he picks him, I'm not voting." I was like, I was so surprised from that particular person, but she didn't trust his pharmaceutical background, and he rubbed her the wrong way during the debates, and she thinks he's a jerk. And you can probably say they think Vivek is a jerk, but not Trump. But just something about Vivek rubbing him the wrong way. No, I'm not. I don't like Vivek either. And he has good ideas, as Glenn said. He's also had really bad ideas. He's also had really bad ideas. And I think, like, he's talking about the youth coming in voting for him. I don't know how the youth is going to feel coming in and voting for someone who wants to raise the voting age or require different hoops to jump through to be able to vote. I think that's probably an idea that would probably serve the country, but there's some legal issues and things that he'd have to change about that. But a big issue with Vivek is that a lot of the things that he advocates for, I think he's a bad sort of face to do for that. He hasn't, he voted in 2020, but he doesn't really have much of a history before that. He hasn't done anything he hasn't run for office before. He hasn't held office before. So his ideas are just ideas, which he keeps shifting and changing, which is fine. You get new information, you change your ideas, but is it likely that he's had so many ideas that he's changed? Or is it kind of more likely that this man is saying some things to appeal to a particular base? But the real reason why I think he would probably be the worst person for Trump to pick for VP is that Vivek has said some pretty interesting things about the vice president and January 6th and how people should have reacted, should have and shouldn't have reacted, particularly Mike Pence. Now, Vivek, in his book, he said that Mike Pence did the right thing. He said that Mike Pence did the right thing certifying the election. He said that Donald Trump lost. He said, he even mentioned like the Mules movie, the 2000 Mules movie, which he hadn't seen. But from the information, he didn't think that they were transporting like fake ballots or whatever. So still believe Trump lost. He believed that Trump was leading the nation Republican Party into victimhood. And they're now at the point where they just can't believe that they don't believe that they lose elections. They just cling on to like a Stacey Abrams sort of mentality of like, we're just cheated all the time. So that's what he wrote not too long ago. It's not like he wrote this book like 20 years ago. It was just a couple of years ago, like 2 maybe. But I'm trying to find really quick the what he said about Mike Pence in the book, because I'm going to play this interview that he had on NBC News. Here's what he said about top election officials and in virtually every state, regardless of party, said they'd found no evidence of any significant level of fraud. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency issued a statement saying the November 3rd election was the most secure in American history. There's no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. The president fired the agency's director a few days later. In a call with Georgia's Secretary of State, the president implausibly claimed to have won every single state, something unprecedented in the nation's history, and a sign that his claims weren't grounded in fact. Mike Pence, a man I have great respect for, decided it was his constitutional duty to resist the president's attempts to get him to unilaterally overturn the results of the election, even in the face of January 6th Capitol riot. Our institutions did hold in the end, but they shouldn't have been tested. So, there's more. I mean, he's nobody likes a sore loser. But while Trump promised to lead the nation to recommit itself to pursuit of greatness, what he delivered in the end was just another tale of grievance, a persecution complex that swallowed much of the Republican Party whole. Those are his thoughts that he wrote not too long ago. And you can say, well, he changed his mind. When he was on Candace Owens' podcast, which I have a video, you guys can go watch the video, reacting to that and reading some of the book, he pretended like it was a satirical chapter. So at first he was like kind of denying the stuff that he wrote or whatever, and then he kept getting asked about it, so he had to kind of be more forthright about it. But I never saw Candace Owens confront him about it or address it. She wouldn't. She campaigned for him in Iowa. But after they did ask the question one time at a debate about Mike Pence and what would have been done that day, or if they thought he was right or whatever, but they couldn't get to Vivek that day. So they did ask him immediately after the debate. I don't have that clip pulled up, but this is a clip from an interview that he had with Chuck Todd. So let me share this screen with you guys. Now, I think his answers here for a general electorate who don't appreciate the escalation of January 6th and all the stuff that happened just would not appreciate his answer.
Let me bring up a couple questions you didn't get a chance to answer at the debate. Most of the candidates on stage Wednesday night said Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th. Do you agree?
I would have done it very differently. I think that there was a historic opportunity that he missed to reunite this country in that window. What I would have said is this is a moment for a true national consensus where there's two elements of what's required for a functioning democracy in America. One is secure elections, and the second is a peaceful transfer of power. When those things come into conflict, that's an opportunity for heroism. Here's what I would have said. We need single-day voting on Election Day. We need paper ballots, and we need government-issued ID matching the voter file. And if we achieve that, then we have achieved victory, and we should not have any further complaint about election integrity.
So what would
I would
you have
driven
done
it through the Senate.
So what would you have done with Mike Pence? You would have not certified the election?
So in my capacity as president of the Senate, I would have led through that level of reform. Then on that condition, certified the election results, served it up to the president, President Trump, then to sign that into law, and on January 7th, declared the re-election campaign pursuant to a free and fair election. I think that was a missed opportunity, but that's the kind of spirit we're going to need to unite this country rather than sweeping those concerns under the rug.
So
Thanks for watching.
Now we talked about this at the time when he mentioned that. I don't know if we talked about that particular interview, which in that interview with Chuck Todd, he did bring up his book and other stuff. He really grilled him in that interview. How is okay? Mike Pence doesn't. He can break a tie or something, but how is he supposed to lead through that reform as the president of the Senate? Who is in what time length, by what right? Like, can you imagine if Kamala Harris, which they changed some legislation or whatever, so apparently they won't have this problem again, but let's say, oh my gosh, sorry about that, I turned the ringer down. Let's say that it was Kamala Harris in that position and Joe Biden wanted let's say let's just say they didn't change the rules or shore up the rules or whatever, and Trump wins the election in 2024. He wins the election, and next year they're certifying the election, or they want to, and Kamala Harris is like, nope, we're not going to certify the election until we I don't know, we change this rule about voting, that rule about voting, same day registration, or mass mail-in forever, drop boxes everywhere, no ID, like things that they will claim will help people be able to vote or whatnot. Let's say she was going to hold the certification of Donald Trump's reelection hostage until, in her capacity as the president of the Senate, she got them to push that legislation through. She'd have no power to do that, and people would blow a gasket with that sort of demand. So I think that particular answer from Vivek was Vivek trying to he can't say that Pence didn't do a good thing. He already wrote that he did the right thing. And he doesn't want to look too crazy, be like, no, he shouldn't have certified. So his answer was some kind of murky in between, when the reality is that how would you have he's never held any sort of seat. He doesn't know how to politic with these people. How would he have gotten that stuff done? How would he have gotten that stuff done? Pushed through the House and pushed through the Senate? How would he have gotten Nancy Pelosi to go along with that? Chuck Schumer, whoever. I guess McConnell would have been the leader at the time, but how? So with answers like that out there, thinking with Trump saying that like presidents have full immunity even when they cross the line, those are the things that he's tweeting out, not tweeting, but truthing out or whatever. So Trump is saying that kind of stuff. And Vivek is like, you can hold the certification hostage with certain particular legislation. That's just not a ticket that I think that the general electorate would be confident in. I don't think so. Another person, and if something happened to Trump, another person with no experience would be the president. At this point in time, Trump has experience being the commander in chief and all that stuff. So he's got experience under his belt, which required a lot of hiring and firing and switchovers and all kinds of stuff. Wasn't like a smooth ride. I don't know how many people are eager to go through that again with someone who hasn't been a part of the movement, who just kind of came out of nowhere. The Vivek thing doesn't make sense to me. The Vivek thing doesn't make sense to me at all. And people think he's so libertarian. I'm like, you're not. He wrote in the same book I read from that a 59% inheritance tax is a moral duty. Like he's got some decent opinions on things, but he's got some things that are not very conservative or libertarian, or that make much sense, or things that can't possibly be implemented. But I guess they sound good to when you're campaigning. I don't know. There could be a name out there that we're not really thinking of. You know, maybe there's like a lieutenant governor somewhere out there. Like Winsome Seniors comes to mind, but she wouldn't do it, and I don't think he would ask her, because she was very quick out the gate of saying that we needed like a new guard like coming in to be the president. But I don't know. We'll see. But I'm telling you, don't be surprised if it's Nikki Haley. Don't be surprised if it's Nikki Haley. They think you guys will roll over if you don't like her. That's what they think. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, and please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on my website, different articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because those costs to stream, run my website, all that stuff. Check out my book, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion. It's available on Amazon and also Barnes and Noble. Lots of conversations about abortion today, like we touched on a little bit earlier, but more and more with the debates and conversations with this topic, I'm glad that I wrote this book, and I really felt that there was a need, especially dealing with like Prop 3 in Michigan. And the truth is, with Roe v. Wade being overturned, it did light a fire within people to try to put abortion into the Constitution and have the people come and vote. Now, I think if it was flipped around and people were faced with the challenge on the ballot of saying like some kind of proposal that was like, do you believe that human rights, do you want to protect preborn children and acknowledge that they have human rights and equal protection? It was something like that. I think more people would be like, logically, like, I can't vote no for that. I think people still would, but I think the way you phrase these questions matter. The way you frame these conversations really matter. And I think pro-lifers have to get better at it. But I am frustrated. I already mentioned that I'm frustrated with the kind of leadership that we have in the Republican Party that aren't really pro-life. So I think we're going down kind of a bad direction, and it's going to get probably worse before it gets better. But we'll have to table that and have that conversation another day. But God bless you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.